if you, my friend, are age 40 plus, 50 plus, or 60 plus, and you're looking for a job, you are in the right place. And we are getting started right off the bat with our very first speaker today, Kenneth Lang. Hey, Kenneth, how are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful. How are you doing, Brenda?
I am great. I'm so excited. I'm so energized to be here. It's been we've been
Yeah.
planning this behind the scenes for a few weeks now, and I know we have so many people that are watching. And I put a ticker up on the screen right now. If you're watching this and it's live, could you go into chat and say yes, it's live? Let us know. It's almost like the mic tap, Kenneth, of the
Yeah,
pre-pandemic days, and we'll be like, "Can you all hear me in the back?" And then the people in
for
the
sure.
back would wave, and you would know. This is our way of making sure that the live stream is actually picking up. And I do have my LinkedIn in another screen in the background, and I see a lot of conversations that are happening, but it's kind of like my mic tap. And as we are getting started, I want to remind everyone we'll be going from 11 a.m. to about 3 p.m. this afternoon. Thank you, John, for saying audio. Yes, it's live. Everybody's saying yes, it's live. So we're open and we're gone. And we're going to start right off the bat with our very first presenter today, Kenneth Lang, and he's going to talk about networking as an introvert on LinkedIn. So, Kenneth, you and I met, gosh, online a few years back. You introduced me to Clubhouse. You were one of my LinkedIn rock stars. There's so many wonderful things. You're on our Friday group calls with us all the
Mhm.
time. Why don't you first tell us a little bit about who you are,
Right.
who you help, and what you do, and then we'll kick it off into your presentation.
Absolutely. My name is Kenneth Lang. As KML consultants, I started with one-on-one LinkedIn training during the pandemic, working with small business owners as well as those in transition. And a funny thing happened. I lost my job like everyone else at the end of the
Mm-hmm.
start of the pandemic. So I said, I want to go back and pay it forward. Having lost my job, been out 2.5 years, I always want to pay it forward. And I'm now at Lee Hecht Harrison as a brand specialist. And it's so wonderful to get all the feedback from people there and listening to people and listening to their stories because I can totally relate. And as
Yeah.
someone of a certain age, I get it. And I think it's so important to have that perspective. You've been through it, you've been through the journey. So I'm hoping to share my expertise. Um, any questions you have, feel free to reach out to me. I'll also be looking in the chat afterwards because this event does not end with my presentation. I recommend you stay on and off as much as possible or go back and watch the recording. And Brenda, thank you so much for doing this presentation. It means so much, I'm sure, to all the job seekers, but also to us because we have
Yeah.
an opportunity to pay it forward to a lot of people.
Absolutely. Well, with that said, I think we're going to go ahead and get you started here, Kenneth. I'm going to add your slides up to the screen,
Sure.
and I'm going to turn the virtual floor over to you, Kenneth Lang, to talk about introverts keeping up with LinkedIn. And I'll let the audience know I'm going to come back on screen at about 11:20, and I'll be helping with some Q&A. So, Kenneth, take it from here.
Thank you very much, Scott. I am an introvert, first of all, so everyone should understand that this is something which is a little bit out of my comfort zone, but I do it because it's so important to do it. So I wanted to talk about how important it is to use LinkedIn for that. So again, for me, it's really hard. I was that person that when I went to an event, I really was afraid to say anything. I was afraid to be part of it. And I'm hoping you feel better after the presentation, at least about yourself and about what you can do, because so many of us are just in our own worlds. And I think it's so important to have that perspective. So this was the way I was and still am. I loved staying inside. I was never the person that wanted to go to an event. I never wanted to get in touch with other people. But again, there's a difference between being an introvert in job search and in networking and being an extrovert because I'm pretty extroverted with my family and friends. But in a presentation like this, putting myself out there, it does not come easily. But if you know who you are, that will resonate a lot. It's knowing that you are, and you can be a combination of both. You can be introverted at times, extroverted at times. So, what I wanted to talk a little bit about today is how you can try to overcome that. First, obviously, making sure that you are who you are. Um, as I said before, it isn't a good or bad thing. People are who they are. You want to make sure that you acknowledge that. You know, when this presentation is over, I'm going to be on the chat, but I know later on today I'm going to be taking a power nap. That's who I am. It may not be you. I think one way I got out of my shell was talking to extroverts and learning from them. So again, um, as more at ease as I am with networking now, I'm still an introvert, but I get my energy, believe it or not, from more introverts and being part of that. It's kind of like the way it was. But LinkedIn was such a great resource for me because I didn't have to go to an event. I didn't have to show up in person. I didn't have to worry about saying the wrong thing or having to bring along someone who was my point person. If you go to a networking event like I did the first few times, I brought a friend. I brought someone along so I wasn't in a conversation by myself. So I had someone to talk to. And then when that third person came in, it made it much easier. So definitely think about that when you go in person. It's very important to know what to use LinkedIn for. It's great for research. It's great for the ability to measure yourself. But above all, it's a great way to put yourself out there and show yourself. So these are some of the basic ways you want to do it. You want to connect with people on LinkedIn. You definitely want to make sure when you connect with them, you have a frame of reference. Like a lot of people on this call, I'm sure you get a lot of the spam type connection requests, or as we would call in our business, pitch slaps, where right away they're trying to sell you something. You want to be genuine, and that's easy to do. Sometimes you want to start out by actually commenting on someone else's post as a starting point. I've made some great connections that way. I'll comment on someone's post, and that becomes an avenue to connect with them. And it's just as important to have follow-up sessions. My caveat these days, though, is not to send that follow-up right away. After you connect with someone, give it a couple of days or so. Think about what you're going to say and asking for advice and help. That was probably the hardest thing for me in job search. I was actually on a call with someone right before this, 10 o'clock in the morning, from someone who just wanted my advice and wasn't looking for anything more than just an understanding. And I was probably as empathetic as I was, going through the suggestions. It's being empathetic to the situation, especially the last 3 years. That's taught us that we can be more than just the job search person or the person that's actually has a certain hierarchy. So one of the best ways to start is think of LinkedIn as Google. Think of it as a searchable database, but just for job search. So if you look at the top here where there's a search bar, you can do searches by posts, by company, by people, by jobs, by schools. I love events. So if you do a search for some term and you look at anything, you're going to get some interesting things. I started out on LinkedIn when I would do a search for a thing like posts or something like that, and I would get results. And I would say, well, here's the layoffs. I would start to get a list of all the people or all the places that had layoffs. And I was just overwhelmed by that. I'm like, oh my God, how am I going to even make this easier? So what I did was I took that next step and I did a sort, and I just did something for the last 24 hours. Just because you have posts or whatever, you can break it down further by how often the posts are. So if you're just looking at some content for the last 24 hours, it will make it easier. And the reason you do this is sometimes it's a starting point for a conversation. As an introvert, I'd be scared to death sometimes about what I'm going to say, and I might be scared about how I'm going to put myself out there. So maybe you don't want to create your own post. Maybe you just want to engage with people. Maybe you just want to be a lurker. And there's nothing wrong with being a lurker, by the way. There's a lot of people on LinkedIn that just lurk and look at content and don't get involved, and that's okay. That's okay as a starting point. I recommend that everyone be on LinkedIn a few times a week for sure, but do it at different times of the day because not everyone is on LinkedIn at the same time. If I'm here in New York, which I am now, it's 11 o'clock in the morning. It's 8 o'clock on the West Coast, but it's also early afternoon, early evening in England. So again, not everyone is using it the same way. And another hidden suggestion, if you connect or if you use the platform on the weekend, you're going to find people that are much more engaged. Yes, there's less people on the platform, but those people are much more engaged and much more willing to share with you. So again, another thing you can do with a post is you can actually start typing the name of the person in this box here. So maybe you want to see a post of mine. So if you start typing my name, I'll show up, or Brenda's or Joey's or someone else. Because one of the comments I get all the time is the feed is going so fast. I can't find all the posts. And it can be hard to save items. So sometimes if you make a mental note of who you want to see, go to their posts, do a sort by maybe the last 24 hours, and then type their name in, and you're going to see all the posts by them. And it's a great starting point. It's a great way to build some research. Again, this is all what a lot of people I find don't use LinkedIn as much for. Yes, it's a job search tool, but if there's any takeaway you get from today, this is about building relationships. Everyone on this call has something in common. You've taken a great first step here. And I think it's so important to take advantage of the fact that you have that network. And even if it's just, like I said, do some lurking, the more information you get, the better. But enough of that. I think everyone here has to feel a certain level of comfort trying to post something. And the big pushback I get, and I run a lot of different job search groups, is what am I going to say? Why is what I'm saying so important? Why should I put myself out there? It's imposter syndrome. What if I get knocked down? Well, guess what? Your value is just as important as anyone else's. So, again, you're going to go to the post, you're going to select what you want to say, and you're going to start doing it. So, as you start typing, if you use the @ people's names will show up. So, this was something I actually did a while ago. And it was a question: how does an introvert network on LinkedIn? It's really hard for me to put myself out there, so any help would be appreciated. And I tagged Brenda and I tagged other people. So this is the way the post would look. How does an introvert network on LinkedIn? It's really hard for me to put myself out there. Thanks so much. Now, this becomes, as Brenda alluded to before, like a mic tap. This is called a digital mic tap. It's a way for me to mic tap Brenda and Alex and others that I want to respond. Now, they may or may not respond, but I'm going to reach out to people I have a good feeling will respond. And the one thing to keep in mind when you do a post and you tag people is don't over tag. Don't put 30 people on the post because you think 30 people are going to respond. LinkedIn will give you a slap and say, you know what, this is just a case of spamming. But it's all about engagement. And you don't have to think too much about what you're going to post. If you have a job search question, there's no reason not to put it out there. You have millions and millions of people on this platform who definitely can take advantage of what your skills are. So this was the finished post I did. And again, when you do an article or something, you do a post, you're perceived as a subject matter expert. You know what you're talking about. But a lot of questions come up. Again, I don't know how to find an article. I don't know where to do this. It's not just on LinkedIn. So I would recommend you set up a Google alert to use keywords. And how you do that is you go, and I'll show you in a second how to do this, but this was a very relevant post that I did about how you post on LinkedIn. Nancy put down how frustrated it was for her. She was one of my first connections. She felt awkward about attending a Zoom meeting. And 3 years ago, Nancy and I had a conversation on LinkedIn. And I said, let's just have a session every week and let's invite people to attend and let's see what they have to say. Well, 3 years later, that session has evolved to lots and lots of people. So I think it's so important to put yourself out there for sure. And it was a very easy post to comment on. So as I commented on the post, other people commented and I started connecting with them because I had that frame of reference. And again, what also happens is if you answer a question, you get tagged in a post. So what I alluded to before is Google Alerts. If you don't know how to find content, you go to Google Alerts and this is clickable. And these are the steps to follow. In the box at the top, you'll enter a topic you want to follow, and then you can do an alert. So if you don't know how to find content or if you want to do some research, I recommend a Google alert. So as an example, I did one a while ago on career advice tips. And depending on how you set it up, whether you want the alert to go every day, every week, every so often, Google will scour the internet for content. And you can use that content as the basis to comment. Maybe you want to connect with the people there. There's so many wonderful things about that. And there's so many free tools about using it. Another great source is if you go to LinkedIn, top right side of your homepage, there's today's news and views. You may want to comment on something. It's a good way to start engagement. And this day here, again, our Tattoos About Career Move. where millennials spend their cash. And it's even possible one of your comments could even be picked up. But again, this is all from an introvert's perspective. I just want to get research. I'm afraid to take that first step. So I'm going to look what other people are saying, and I'm going to say something there that's going to be relevant, but I'm only part of the conversation. I'm not the center of attention. So just as a reminder, LinkedIn is not a substitute for any of this stuff that we're doing. It's a building relationship platform. You should be attending events. You should be working with an accountability group, attending in person or online. But what most job seekers don't think about is that they should be not just in job search, but they should be branding themselves, portraying themselves a certain way. If you're looking for a job in a certain part of the country, you got to let sure people know that. If you have certain skills, same thing. If you're available for remote, there's a big discussion on LinkedIn about the numbers. Do not worry about the numbers. It's not how many people are viewing your profile or how many people are commenting in your articles. It's the quality of the people. There are people that get a lot more views and a lot more engagement than me. It doesn't bother me in the least. And even recently, with the whole idea of artificial intelligence and profiles and things like that, try to turn off the noise, be aware of it. You are yourself, you do the best that you can. So I always say this is one of my things. I say, come on, dive in, the water's fine. Take the plunge on LinkedIn. And the analogy I make, and it's a true story for me, is when you go the first time, and it's Memorial Day weekend, so a lot of us are going to be heading down the shore in New Jersey. We don't say down to the shore. Think about going to the ocean. The water is really cold. So you're going to dip one toe in first, and then maybe dip another toe, and then maybe your feet, and maybe eventually you take the plunge. The difference is that this process may take days or weeks to do. So maybe you're comfortable in the beginning lurking, and maybe for a little while after that, you're going to start engaging. But you owe it to yourself to take that on. And I recommend that you start slowly with people you meet here. Everyone on this call who's listening and has that commonality. So go back to the chat and look at that. Again, following up with connection requests is so, so important. You want to also schedule some time to speak or meet virtually with anyone. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Be specific, though. Asking me to help you find a job is not going to help me. If you need an introduction, if you want specific advice, that's going to be a key, because you want to make sure that you are not only accountable to people you're going to reach out to, but accountable to yourself. And attending an event like this, you guys have taken a great first step. Even if you're just here to listen, be a fly on the wall. I met Brenda attending one of these events many years ago. I heard about it on LinkedIn, and I thought, this has got to be a great thing. This is going to be great for at the time, it was job search, actually, because I hadn't decided then, after I lost my job, that I was out for good. And I got so much amazing voice, but above all, I met so many great people who are willing to chat, who are much more than just people on the conversation. So I want to thank Brenda, my fellow presenters, and all of you, what you do to support others. I do weekly online events. I'll be doing my next one next week. And in June, we're celebrating 3 years of doing these, which I never thought could ever happen. I didn't think it would be possible for people to care. But Brenda, I am so proud to be a member of your VIP team. Connect with me on LinkedIn, but above all, be yourself. Introvert or extrovert, we're all in this together.
Absolutely. Wow. So many great pieces of information, gems that you shared with us there today, Kenneth. And I want to invite the folks that are watching. I'm seeing some people already doing this, but I'll give you a few reminders, playing upon what what Kenneth was saying, rather. First of all, make sure you introduce yourself in chat, because there are recruiters and there are hiring managers that are watching this right now. You never know when you're going to come across somebody who might see you and say, hey, this is somebody I want to hire for my company. So don't be shy about doing that. And check out Kenneth's events. Isn't it every Tuesday at 1 p.m.?
It's every Tuesday at 1 p.m. And we do some in-person events now too. But even if you can't attend the event, watch the recording. And I recommend the same thing with the Friday events that you do, Brenda. There's so much great information, and it costs nothing to attend. And you never know where it's going to end up. Look, I ended up with you, Brenda, after being one of the many guests here many years ago. And I thought I was scared to death when I connected with you. Actually, I was so afraid of rejection, and it's a true story.
It makes me smile when you say that, because I'm like, who are you scared of? It's not. It's just me. Like I'm just like you. We're just people. We're just we're just people. Is all we are, right?
But I can be my own worst enemy that way, overthinking things.
Yeah.
That's just the way I am. But I'm like, after that, I'm like, this really isn't so hard. So think about that mindset when you do this, for sure.
Yeah. Well, I want to make sure that you'll be dropping, I think you'll be going into the chat after, you'll be dropping the links in there. I'm going to put the Friday VIP call link inside chat. And look, the people that are watching that are part of our Friday VIP community, I'm going to give all of you a shout out. And I want to remind those individuals that in between presenters today, people that are in my Friday VIP call, I'm going to invite you to come onto StreamYard with us, and we'll do like a 15 to 20-second introduction of yourself. You all know what I'm going to ask you for: your targeted job title, your targeted geographic area, and then you'll be putting some comments onto the chat so people can connect with you. I want to invite our audience, if you do have any questions for Kenneth, we're going to do some Q&A with him right now. So feel free to drop your questions or comments about anything that Kenneth was discussing. Go ahead and drop those into chat, and we'll do some questions now. As we're waiting for those to come in, I want to go back to one of the phrases that you were talking about, Kenneth, when you said people are lurkers. People lurk. I like to call them readers instead of lurkers, because lurkers, it sounds like you're looking around me at the corner. Like readers is really what a lot of people do on LinkedIn. They come on and they read, but they don't click and they don't like and they don't comment and they don't post. But it's a slight variation. It's like, instead of saying mature job seeker, it's saying experience rich job seeker. It's a slight variation of that. I hope you don't mind me, Kenneth, jumping in and giving that.
No, of course not. Of course not. No, never.
And I'm just waiting to see, and I see a lot of people from our VIP job seeking community that are in here, and Joan, who's one of our later speakers, who's going to be in, jumping in here as well. See a lot of people identifying either as introverts, extroverts. They're kind of mentioning that inside chat. I'm just scrolling through, and if you do have any questions for Kenneth, or if you're an introvert, or if maybe you're a little nervous and you don't want to say I'm an introvert, you can say I have a friend who's wondering.
Absolutely.
Right?
That's a great thing when you do a post. You do that all the time. I'm posting for a friend. A friend wants to know.
Yeah, honestly, most of the time when I am posting for a friend, I am posting for a friend. I'm like, I will post for people so that they don't get swarmed by salespeople. I'll let the salespeople swarm me, and then when they do, I'll say, you got to go in comments. You got to put it in comment, because I'm directing my client to the post that's inside here. But I want to invite our job seekers. If anyone would have a question for Kenneth, don't be shy. Feel free to drop those into chat. And chat is like lit right now, Kenneth.
Really?
I'm like, why don't know by calling you Kevin? I don't know. I know your name is Kenneth, but my head is like, it's the adrenaline of the LinkedIn Live-A-Thon, I think.
And I will get to as many of the comments as I can. I'm leaving this conversation, but I will be a part of this all day. So, and because I think this is such an important event, and I'm still learning stuff too. That's the important thing. I'm always learning from everyone. And the day you stop learning is the day you're not around.
Yeah. So I see one comment I want to address, and then we'll go on to the other one. Stephanie is saying, hey, how many others watching are 40 plus that are pivoting their careers like me? I mean, that's what you did, right, Kenneth? You pivoted your career.
Many, probably 4 or 5 career pivots over the years. And sometimes you have to ask yourself, what are the skills I have that are transferable within reason? That's my caveat. Like I have transferable skills, but there's no way in heck I could ever work for Meta or Google or something like that. But you also want to ask people who are in the field you want, ask them how they got started in the field. Ask them what makes them tick. People love to talk about themselves. People love to talk. So don't be afraid to take the chance, but they'll tell you if it's not right for you. I mean, they may be honest in a way that someone that, again, we'll be honest as much as possible. It's better to hear from someone who's in the field. Be pointed and ask questions like that, because people will be honest. They don't want to hire people that aren't qualified.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. And so many of us, and I think myself included, Kenneth, if someone had told me I'd be doing what I'm doing now when I was working in corporate, I would have said, you're crazy. I'm never going to leave I'm never going to do the thing that would, it sounds appealing, but I never would have had the courage to. So yes, Stephanie, many of us are like you. We've pivoted. And
Absolutely.
there are many others that are watching that don't know they're going to do a pivot yet. And maybe this will bring that up to them. I see Joey is in the green room. So Joey's our next speaker. I'm going to bring Joey up on screen just for a second to say hi, Joey. Make sure you can hear us. Can you say hello?
Hello.
Hi, Joey. Long time no see. We actually met in person a couple weeks ago. It was so cool.
Yes, we did.
Fun. All right, Joey, I'm going to put you back in the green room. We'll bring you back on in just a few moments here. And I see a comment from Paul Anthony coming in. Experience rich, Kenneth. And he's saying, is that perpetually jobless? Now, you know what I mean when I say experience rich. What do you think, Kenneth?
No, everyone is always in transition in some way, shape, or form, even if you're working. Experience rich means you are sharing experience that you have that others don't have. And it's things that people don't necessarily equate as experience, but it's so important to be able to do the coordination and run the meetings and know what's important and what's not important. And you may not be appreciated by one company, but you find another. Or maybe the answer is you work for yourself, or maybe the answer is you work for a smaller business. There's all different opportunities. I think a lot of job seekers do the same thing all the time. Here's the top companies. I'm going to be that one person out of 500 to send a job. Why am I not getting hired?
Yeah.
Well, sometimes you have to change it up, and sometimes you have to be willing to accept that.
Yep, absolutely. Well, there's more questions and comments coming in, but I've got to start to move us off onto Joey. Before I do so, I do want to share my screen, which is showing your LinkedIn URL. While that is coming up on screen, Kenneth, could you just remind people, are you open to connecting with people on LinkedIn? And if so, do you have any preferences with regards to how they connect with you?
I would love it if someone could just put a note that you're on this session today, just for a frame of reference, because a lot of times it's hard for me to know, just as a starting point. And then if you want to ask me anything specific about what I can do to help you, again, it's the little things. I don't know what I don't know. I can't be a mind reader about things. It's not that I don't want to be. What I've learned is to be very curious. I'm very inquisitive about what I want. And again, I'll be honest, not brutally honest necessarily, but you want to hear from someone like me or someone like Brenda that there are things, and we kind of call it amongst ourselves like a little bit of spinach in the teeth sort of thing.
Yes. Yeah.
Like we're going to be honest with you, but in a way that we want you to understand that we have best intentions. We're not going to shoot anyone down, because that's what. And I consider everyone here a networking friend in some way, shape, or form. I mean, we haven't all met, but we're all kind of going through this journey together in different ways.
Absolutely. So if you want to connect with Kenneth, because Kenneth has creator mode turned on his profile, when you visit his profile, you're going to see follow. So what you'll want to do is click under the more button, and then you'll see an option that will say personalize invite or connect. And just mention that you saw Kenneth on the live event with Brenda. Just name drop me, and then he'll be like, okay, I know where you're coming from.
And then I am offering a 30-minute conversation with anyone that wants to have a LinkedIn profile review. That's going to be shared later on. So again, mention that as well. That'll definitely be a starting point, because all we want to do is help you. That's all. That's what we're looking to do.
Yeah, awesome. And on that note too, I want to remind everyone, if you want to get access to all of the playbacks, I'm going to clip out each of these videos in 30-minute segments, and then I'll be sharing all of the presenter resources with all of you. Kenneth just mentioned the 30-minute call. He also talked about his Tuesday groups and whatnot. You'll have to sign up at mellermarketing.com/LilRich, LIL Rich. So the LIL stands for LinkedIn Live, and the Rich stands for experience rich. And I made it a little shorter for you to be a little easier to type in. So just remember, mellermarketing.com/LIL Rich, Lil Rich, and then you'll get access to all of the playbacks. And anything else, Kenneth, if people are interested in working with you, can we do so? Do you offer one-on-one, or tell us a little bit about that?
Well, I used to offer a lot more one-on-one than I do now that I'm actually working now at Lee Hecht Harrison. So my time has been a little more limited, but I'm happy as a follow-up. If someone wants to work with me, please reach out to me. What I find is that, and this is a perfect example, I didn't expect to go to Lee Hecht Harrison. I did not expect 3 months ago that I'd be doing all this. And it just happened because it was an interesting thing for me, and I enjoy doing it. So you never know where your next experience or your next journey is going to be. That's just life.
That's a good point. Well, Kenneth Lang, thank you so much. This has been such a delight.